I don't know if this is a monument to my ego or it actually might be helpful for you to hear the various travails, the arc maybe, of my career. Uh, it started, I guess, when my father, probably at about 12 years old, his friend owned a small credit furniture store, and I think I asked to want to work. I don't remember why, but got a job um, sending out bills to people who had bought furniture on credit and hadn't paid. And I've always been fast and too fast at times. And I was so eager to show how quickly I get the work done, I made errors. And I guess I got fired or it just ended after the summer. But that was a lesson learned, being too fast. Then the next job I remember was as a musician. I played over 2,000 weddings and bar mitzvahs in New York. But I got sick and tired of playing Hava Nagila and the Tarantella a million times. Although unfortunately I didn't get sick of eating all those buffets, and my belly shows it. And then when I went to college, I thought I was going to be a doctor. But for two reasons, I switched out of pre-med. I found science courses harder than the soft sociology and psychology, and nobody told me that they are simply harder. But I thought it was because I was stupid, and so I switched to psychology. And also, I became a hypochondriac. Well, I've been a lifelong hypochondriac, but it really got worse as I was reading more about physiology and diseases. So that's why I switched to be a psychology major. I got a job at the Rockefeller University as a research assistant on the first research that proved that biofeedback worked. But I got sick of working with rats. I was working 12, 14 hours a day dealing with anesthetized, or I should say curorized rats. And my job was to train them to lower their blood pressure. And after a while I got so frustrated, one time I just took the rat by the tail and threw him against the wall. And that was one sign I needed to quit. This was when computers were first being invented, and my boss, Barry Dworkin, was trying to teach me how to create a computer chip by chip, wire by wire, and I didn't get it. And so again, I felt I was too stupid. So became a drug counselor in an inner city school in New York. I ran these rap groups, and I failed again terribly. These were groups of 15, quote, at-risk kids. And whether I was nice or I was tough, it didn't seem I was able to control. We were supposed to have these rap groups where we rap, when you used to talk, not rapping as in today's music, where we would talk about the precursors of drugs, peer pressure, and all the rest of it. But I couldn't even get him to sit still, let alone have a conversation of any intelligence. And it was chaos in my room. The most memorable moment is when a kid came up to me and get in my face, "You ain't my mama, you ain't my mama, you can't make me." And the chaos in my room I ended up paying the price for it, because the superintendent of schools was touring the school and he heard the chaos in my room, and he came in and he said, "Would you step outside, please?" And when I got out there, he said, "Son, you need a new job." So I figured what I needed was more education. So I applied to a bunch of graduate schools. It was anyway, long story short, I did go to Berkeley and got a PhD there. Anyway, afterwards, I felt like I couldn't ethically deem myself an education professor. By the way, my PhD was in educational psychology and also in evaluation of innovative programs. It was a joint degree. Anyway, but I felt I couldn't evaluate education programs, or I couldn't train other teachers or whatever. If I had been a failed teacher, no matter how much theoretical knowledge I had. So I went back to the inner city, and this time in Richmond, California, a very tough area. And I was better, but after 3 years, I felt, well, the kids loved me. I did all kinds of outrageous things. I'll take a moment to describe them. I did things like I convinced the Richmond Police Department to let me have all the unclaimed bicycles that were stolen, and we took them apart in the class and put them back together, wrote a manual, and then sold them. And So they learned entrepreneurship. We donated some of the profit to charity, and then we kids took a little bit of the money. I convinced the Bally Corporation to donate a arcade Pac-Man machine. This was 1982 when Ms. Pac-Man was the game. I'm a musician, as I mentioned, so I rewrote The Wizard of Oz, The Sound of Music, and Oliver into 45-minute versions, and we did them as plays for the school. I played basketball with the kids, but I felt it didn't make much difference. But what really pushed me over the edge was I wanted the kids to feel what it was like to have a middle-class life, so I invited them over to my house, and a whole bunch of them came, but they all didn't fit in my house. My classroom aide lived down the block, and so some of them stayed with her, and some stayed with me, and in the morning, she told me that 3 of them had gang raped her. These are 12 and 13-year-old kids. And then I said, these kids' problems are too, let's just say, severe for beyond what my Marty Nemco's capabilities are, and I left. And then I became a gypsy professor. I was teaching part-time at a number of universities, including Berkeley, but could never land a full-time tenure-track job, even though I had a 3.9 GPA from Berkeley in my PhD. My dissertation was nominated for the UC Berkeley Dissertation of the Year. I'm a good teacher. I write prolifically. I somehow could not get a job. I had this sneaking feeling that maybe my not being a radical leftist and being a white male didn't help, but it was confirmed in the moment maybe is one of my life's most memorable. I was a finalist for a tenure-track job. That's a real professorship at San Francisco State. And it was the interview from heaven. They were nodding, they were laughing. It was great. It was 5 or 6 of them. And at the end of the interview, the chair of the department, his name was Mark Phillips, he asked the other professors to leave and asked me to stay. And he said, this was so many years ago now at this point, I feel comfortable saying it, because I think there's a larger lesson here, a larger good will accrue from my mentioning it. He said, Marty, you're by far the most qualified candidate for the job, and you don't stand a ghost of a chance to get it. Chance of getting it. He said the dean has informed us that the next 7 tenure-track positions will be women or minorities, and that was very dispiriting to me. So now I kind of gave up the professorial search, and I said, now what am I going to do? Well, my father was healed from being a Holocaust survivor by work. He didn't go to Holocaust remembrances. He didn't spend a lot of time talking about the Holocaust. He decided to just take the next step forward and bury himself in work, taking care of my mom, my sister, and me. And he did he worked like a dog. But he ended up being a contented human being. And so I figured if work was so important, both to healing himself, supporting family, and making a contribution, even though he was a tiny little store owner in a bad neighborhood in Brooklyn, a terrible neighborhood in Brooklyn, I figured that helping people find their right work would be a good thing for me to do. And so I became a career counselor. And I've done that now for 34 years. I got bored with just doing that. So I ended up doing some writing and got to write a career column for the Chronicle and host a radio show. And I'm now in my 30th year hosting a radio show on the smaller of the 2 NPR stations in San Francisco. And that's kind of my life. I've written, 12 books and 3,500 articles, including for Time, The Atlantic, 1,360 for Psychology Today alone. And now I'll be 69 years old in June. And I'm grateful to still have all my energy and hopefully my marbles. No diseases yet. It's happening. It's inevitable. We're all on the same conveyor belt. But I'm spending a lot of time thinking about, is there anything I want to do next? I don't want to write any more books. I'm kind of running out of things to say after that. About 3,500 articles. It's in 12 books. There's not much more I want to say or have to say that's of any value. When I have something, I write it as a Twitter tweet or as a Psychology Today article, or I talk to you like I'm doing this. So I don't know. I'm kind of despondent, even though I've ostensibly made a big difference or whatever. I don't feel it. I feel like that old Peggy Lee song, Is That All There Is? I'm not a relationship guy, although I'm married and I love my wife. The meaning of life doesn't fully reside for me there. I'm not a recreation guy. I work. I'm a worker. I work 70 hours a week now, and as I always have, and grateful I can still do it. But I don't know. I've written a one-man show. I do my one-man show called Odd Man Out about my various travails. I talk about even more negatives. that have happened in my life. I don't know. I don't know what the takeaway is. I do know, and I've said this before, and I guess you may not have seen it or heard it. If I were to do it again, I probably wouldn't have gone to college at all, let alone graduate school. For the amount of time, there wasn't the money. I got a free ride for my graduate, my PhD, and my undergraduate was dirt cheap. It was a Queens College undergraduate. It was City University of New York. The amount of time and stress for the amount of learning that was useful. I love learning, but I think I would have not gone to college, let alone graduate school. And I would have just been a self-teacher. I would read a lot. I would, if it was today, I'd watch a lot of YouTube videos. I'd go to webinars. I'd take short courses. I'd look at the finest, the highest, the best reviewed ones that were available online, the Coursera. Like I said, I'm not social, so online is fine for me. I would follow through. And then I'd start writing. And video. I like creating content. So I'd be writing about the things I care about. I'm very practical. So like how to make, how to do everything from career to money to relationships to the meaning of life to physical health, mental health, diet, time effectiveness, all that stuff that I write about. And I do these YouTube videos. I don't know if I wouldn't be any happier, but I think I would have saved a lot of that education that was just not that interesting and a lot of time. I don't know. That's been the arc of my career. I'm grateful for every day that I'm still able to be fully functional. I don't take it for granted at all. And I don't know. I don't know if there's any value in this for you or not, but that's my honesty. I certainly have given you my honest reporting of what my career arc and travails have been. And that's it. So I'll simply say, as usual, if you feel free to look down there, you can see you can make a thumbs up or a thumbs down, write a comment, and if you're so inclined, share it on social media. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I'm Marty Nemko.